Their problem is bigger than God in their minds. So my question to you today is your problem, is your challenge, is your uncertainty, is that becoming bigger than your God? Hello and welcome to our Christ Church Leadership Podcast in the Western Tradition. I'm Charles Kyker, your host. Glad you're with us today. I want to ask a question. A pastor friend of mine led me in this direction years ago. I think it's a worthwhile question to ponder. Perhaps I should ponder it more often myself. What would happen if Jesus woke up in my bed tomorrow? In other words, he is me. He gets up, he takes my pajamas off or whatever. He showers, he goes to my closet, he goes to my drawers, my socks, t-shirts, goes to my closet, tries to find something to put on. How would he dress? Would he jump right out of bed and do all of that, or would he hit the floor and say, "Great God, King of the universe, I give you thanks for this night of sleep. I give you thanks for this day. And now may I surrender it and live it fully unto you." And then maybe spend the first 15 or 20 minutes in prayer. What would Jesus think about my bathroom? What would he think about my clothes, as mentioned before? And then when he went downstairs, what would he eat? Would he be able to eat whatever I have in my pantry or in my cabinets? Would Jesus decide to take my keys, get in the vehicle that I drive, or would he just walk? Or would he think it more advantageous to maybe try to bum a ride? That way you could have a conversation in the car. When he went to my workplace or place of business or whatever my activities were that day, if he were in my clothes, living my life, would he have any explaining to do? When people ask him, "You really look at peace today. In fact, you seem to have some joy I don't normally see. What's going on in your life? What's new? What's different? Tell me about it." Would it be halfway through the day that somebody said to him, "You really are acting different today. My goodness. I can't believe how many people you stopped and talked to today and even offered some encouragement to. And you even talked to the most ornery, angry, concerning person in our workplace today, and now all of a sudden he's acting different." What if he went to the ATM and used your card? What if he opened up your checking account? What would he find there? Would he look at the use of money over the last couple months? Would he feel the need to withdraw a little bit, and instead of eating lunch that day, he takes that $20 or $25 and goes down to the Salvation Army, and he has lunch with some new friends, and he takes your would-be tithe that you should have been given, and he gives it to a place that he feels like it's going to make an impact? I just wonder what would happen if Jesus woke up in your bed tomorrow morning. And then what about your closest relationships? How would they be different? Would he treat them differently? And then towards the end of the day, how would that end? Would he gather around Would he invite other people? In other words, would you have a house full by the end of the day? People that he had met throughout the day that he invited over for a meal. And would there be new people around the table? And he would introduce them to your family or to your friends, or maybe you rent an apartment with somebody. Maybe you're not married and have 2.2 kids, but still there's new people around the table. There's new guests there. And all of a sudden you're getting to know some new people that you've never met before. What would that look like at the end of the day? You know, we, in the one-year Bible reading, we're looking at the Gospel of Mark, and there's a story, of course, of Jesus being handed over to the Pharisees and the leaders and the Sanhedrin and, of course, Caiaphas and the high court. But our one-year Bible reading in the Old Testament actually talks about an issue of faith. And I begin with this story because how are you living the faith? How are you intentionally living your life? We're starting a new series this weekend called Just Like Jesus. Just like Jesus. What would it be if you and I lived a life just like Jesus? How would we treat people differently if we lived just like Jesus? It'd be just like Jesus to go the extra mile and spend some extra time with somebody. It'd be just like Jesus to forgive the unforgivable. It'd be just like Jesus to love the unlovable. It'd be just like Jesus to spend some time seeking to get to know people that you and I don't ever spend any time with. It'd be just like Jesus, and you can just fill in the blanks. That's where we're going with this series as we go up to Easter. But today, the text, though, really is a pretext for the person and the life of Christ, because over and over again, when Jesus encounters people in the New Testament, and we're going to look at the Gospel of John for 21 weeks, but what Jesus is consistently doing in his encounters with people is he's trying to help them learn that his whole purpose for coming is the redemption of the world. And part of that has to be their own sense of not only having faith, but living into their faith. And I believe as leaders today, you and I shortchange ourselves dramatically because, first of all, our lack of faith in God. Second of all, our lack of faith in others. And then thirdly, our lack of faith in ourselves. Let me go over that again. We shortchange our leadership, diminish it severely by first, our lack of faith in God. Secondly, our lack of faith in others and being able to trust and believe in others. And then third, our own lack of faith in ourselves. It's fleshed out here in Numbers chapter 14. And I'm not going to read all the text, but let's just kind of revisit it. Suffice it to say that Moses had sent out 12 spies into the promised land to spy it out. And the 12 come back. 10 give a majority report that there are giants in the land. That's all they can see. These people will take us out. These people will hurt us, will harm us. And so all they can see and all they're fixated on are the giants, the problems. And so I ask you, before we go any further today, what problems or challenges are you dealing with right now in your leadership? What issues are you facing right now? What decisions in life are in front of you that are problems, challenges, issues you've got to deal with? You've got to wade through them. And you know you do. Maybe you've been avoiding them a little bit. Maybe you want to get in better shape, lose weight. Maybe it's some relationship challenges and issues that you've got to wade through. Maybe there's some necessary conversations coming up. Maybe there's some decisions you need to make in the area of personnel or working through some particular areas of ministry, or if you're in a for-profit particular team that you've got to deal with, whether it's marketing, production, or whatever. What challenges and problems are you facing? And the issue is, are you only seeing the problems? In other words, are the problems being magnified to the point that you are only seeing them, and therefore you are being filled right now with your own sense of fear and doubt? Because all the people could see were the giants, and then therefore they were inundated with two things: fear and scarcity. Scarcity mindset. Fear is the first thing that happened in the Garden of Eden when sin came into the world. Fear and shame, two things. The scarcity mindset is a first cousin, a partner with fear, because when you're filled with fear, fear is the unknown. How can we go into this land when these are large human beings? They can take us out, do us in. And so they're inundated with fear and a scarcity mindset, and they've taken their eyes and their focus off of God. So God's not even in the picture. Their problem is bigger than God in their minds. So my question to you today is your problem, is your challenge, is your uncertainty, is that becoming bigger than your God? Well, let's dive into how this is shaping up when they come back, and then Joshua and Caleb give the minority report where they say, we didn't focus on the giants. Golly, we brought some grapes back that are so big it took two of us to carry just one bundle of grapes. I mean, this land is the land of milk and honey. It's incredible. It's fruitful. There are wonderful benefits of living in this place, in this land. It's bountiful. That's what Joshua and Caleb saw. So let's go to chapter 14, verse 1. Then the whole community began weeping aloud, and they cried all night. Why were they crying? Because of their fear and their scarcity mentality, because they were afraid of the giants. And here's the thing. The people had never seen the giants. The people had never seen them. It's just those 10 people that had seen them. You see how you can cause all kinds of disturbance and chaos in an organization if you just start spreading gossip and negativity? If you start allowing your scarcity mindset to be unleashed on the people that you lead, they can sense it. The people were weeping and crying. They hadn't even seen a giant yet. And all of a sudden they're boo-hooing because they think they're going to die. It's really fascinating, this thing called fear and scarcity, how it consumes us and twists our thinking. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If we had only died in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness, they complained, why is the Lord asking us to go to this country only to have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to return to Egypt? And then they plotted among themselves, let's choose a new leader and go back to Egypt. So their solution is, let's just get a new leader. We don't like the current direction. We don't like the fact that we're going to have to face the giant. So we'll just get a new leader. We'll just get a new leader. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole community of Israel. Two of the men who had explored the land, Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, the land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land and give it to us. It is rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord. And don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. When you operate out of faith and belief in the living God, you don't see people as giants. You see them as helpless prey before an almighty God. Totally different attitude, totally different mindset. You don't see your problem as overwhelming. You see your God who is bigger than your problem, bigger than the challenge you're facing. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them. Verse 10, but the whole community began to talk about stoning Joshua and Caleb. And then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tabernacle. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? Will they never believe me, even after all the miraculous signs I've done among them? I will disown them and destroy them with a plague. And then I will make you into a great nation, even greater and mightier than they are. Ironically, Moses, who is already being suggested by the people to be stoned, to be done away with, actually now goes on behalf of the people and says, God, please, time out. Don't kill them. Because the report will go back to Egypt after you've delivered them out of bondage, 400 years of slavery, after you've led them through the Red Sea and parted the waters, after you've provided manna each and every day for them to be fed. Please, God, don't, Now, if you're not careful, you can get into some wayward theology that somehow or another Moses is going to change God's mind. That's not what's going on here. God is, however, venting. See, venting is not evil. Venting is, I'm sharing my heart here. I am so ticked off at this disobedience. I'm so upset at their lack of faith and trust in me. And of course, Moses is getting nervous because he knows how powerful God is. And with one hand, God could just take them out. They wouldn't even have to worry about giants. I mean, God could just. And so Moses is, I think what's powerful about this is Moses is interceding on behalf of the very people who are threatening to stone him, Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb. So, couple leadership lessons. When God is calling you into a new territory, when God is calling you into a new way of thinking or a new way of ministry or a new way of development, there will always be challenges and there will always be resistance of some kind. There just will. Because people will have to acclimate to it. People will have to adjust to it, especially if it's a vision where things are going to need to change so that more territory can be taken, so that more leaders can be developed, so that more ministry can be done. Or if we're really going to be effective sometimes, we have to ask the question, what needs to be totally scrapped? Now, I made a mistake early in my ministry. It's a mistake I try to learn from. I came into a new assignment as a new pastor. I was over evangelism, outreach. I was over student ministry. I was over discipleship. That's what happens when you're an associate pastor of a church of about 350 or 400. In any case, I met with the person who had been the senior volunteer, kind of the senior leader, the senior volunteer for student ministry. Student ministry was about 25 or 30, not bad for a congregation of about 350 at the time. My goal was to have 50 or 60. Eventually we did in the 2 years I was there. But I met with this senior leader, and we were talking about the way the ministry was organized. And she was a very efficient organizer. She really was. And she really could organize teams. She was very detailed, and she talked about the way ministry had gone in the past, in the last 4 years, under the former associate pastor. I began to suggest that we needed to change this and change this and change this, because I felt like the organization was fine, but the organization was for the benefit of those who were planning and implementing. And I said, what What are we doing on behalf of the students? How are we really personalizing the gospel for the students? And what's our outreach plan? How are we growing the student ministry? How are we challenging them and equipping them to invite their friends and their colleagues in middle school and high school to start attending student ministry? And what can we do to have special events that they can invite people to? We've got everything neat and packaged here, but what's the outreach? What's the whatever? And I started seeing a different expression on her face. And then I finally realized, I said, "You were the author of all of this, weren't you? It wasn't a former associate pastor." She said, "That's right." I planned all this. And I was like, okay. When I was talking about changing things, I was talking directly to the architect. I thought the architect was the former associate pastor, and that now being the new associate pastor, I could make some needed changes that I felt like, after being trained in outreach and evangelism for 2 years at Emory under George Morris and some other pastors like John Ed Matheson at Fraser, who had a very fruitful ministry there. I suddenly realized I was suggesting making changes to somebody who had already fully invested in something and felt like it was just fine. It was just fine. I wasn't going to scrap everything, but there were some things I felt like needed to be changed. And automatically, I sensed her getting tense and some very, very strong pushback. When you're getting ready to take new ground, when you're ready to go to the promised land, you better be ready for some challenge and some pushback. Now, sometimes pushback is mostly I would say it this way: pushback can be beneficial for many reasons. One is if it's done in a healthy environment, if it's done where it's welcomed and you don't feel threatened as the leader, and you listen to it and you share. A lot of times the best ideas can rise to the surface when it is healthy pushback. But if it's done solely out of scarcity mentality and solely done out of protectionism, therefore we don't really want to go to the next level. We just want our little neat world tightly and neatly done, instead of doing whatever it takes for the glory of God to reach those who have yet to belong, or whatever your mission is as an organization. For us, our vision at Christ Church is do whatever it takes short of sin to reach lost people for Christ. So if we're willing to do that, we've got to be willing to reassess what our current format is and our current structure. And are we actually doing that? Are we really reaching unchurched people? Are we really taking new ground for the kingdom? So first of all, what is my faith in God and my trust in God? That if you're calling me to this, I'm going to put my trust in you, and I'm going to believe that you'll see me through. You won't forsake me. I want to be more like Joshua and Caleb. I don't want to see giants. I don't want to see the problems and let the problems be bigger than my God. I want to see a big God, believe in a big God, and I also don't want to be foolish. So don't be foolish. The second thing is I need to have faith in people. I think a lot of people want to be effective in ministry. I think a lot of people want to be effective in their organization. If you're a for-profit, you make widgets and gadgets, or you provide services, whatever it is you do. I think most people want to be effective in what they do. At the end of the day, they want to think they've made a difference or whatever when they get a paycheck. So how do I have faith in people? And how do I help them be a part of this greater vision? How do I believe in them? And I think that's what Moses was trying to do. But then all of a sudden, it was like a negativity drop. And God more or less took over. I mean, Moses interceded, pleading for God's mercy for the people. But then God just gave a clear directive. He was like, here's the deal. For every day, 40 days when they went to explore the land, for every day that they disbelieved in my power to give them this land, they will spend a year for every day in the wilderness. So the 40 days of exploration turned into 40 years in the wilderness. And God just said, they will not be able to inherit the promised land. But their children, who they worried would be put into slavery and be put into plunder, it's their children who I will actually allow to inherit the promised land. In other words, I'm going to be faithful to my promise. You see, no matter what happens, God is always faithful. God's always faithful. So believe in God. Secondly, try to believe in people as much as you can. Invest in people. You're going to have to trust people to some degree. You can't go around and micromanage. You're going to have to train, equip, and release. Train, equip, and release. But train them. Let them know what the expectations are. Believe in them. And as I'm learning, younger people more and more need more attaboys and more attagirls. They need a little bit more time, face time with their supervisors or with their managers or with their ministry leaders or whatever the case may be. Third, believe in yourself. When fear strikes at your heart or the heart of others, the worst thing a leader can do is panic. The worst thing a leader can do is surrender before you've even stepped towards the promised land. And all too often, because of the negativity and the pushback of others, leaders will therefore surrender. They won't believe in themselves. Case in point, when COVID hit, it was March of 2020. I was getting directives from our denominational office, our denominational leader. I was getting directives from our bishop that said, close for safety, do not open. And I said, okay. The Bible says in Romans 13 that I am to respect and honor leaders. But I'm also supposed to have faith in God. I'm also supposed to believe and have faith in others. And thirdly, I need to have faith and belief in me as a leader. God's called me. In other words, you can have overconfidence, and then people really do think you suck when you become arrogant. But is there a confidence that God has called you to this place and time for such a time as this, as God's word said about Esther? So if I'm called to this place, this office at this time, God, what's my role? What should I do? First of all, what does what I do say about you? Because your actions mirror your faith. So let's be legal, and that's what we did. We had online since 2012, so we've been doing online ministry for 8 years. It was nothing new to us. That Sunday that we were supposed to close, we sent out the emails, we sent out the text. We said, we're going to open fully here. I think it was March 22nd, and we're going to be online, and we want you to join us. And we're also going the next weekend, we're going to start drive-in. So we're going to do both. We're going to open ourselves up for drive-in worship, and we're also going to be online. And that's what we did. So we had drive-in, and we also had online. And we publicized at the various campuses for what each campus thought it could do. And we started showing videos of how we were going to do it. We asked people to contribute online, but you can also contribute in person if you do drive-in. The bishop never mentioned drive-in. The bishop never mentioned coming in your car. The bishop and the judicatory never mentioned any of these possibilities. We in prayer, we as a team decided this is what God wanted us to do. My mentor in the doctoral program, Dale Galloway, launched a church in Oregon where it rains 272 days out of 365, and he did drive-in worship in the midst of downpouring rains, Dale and Margie Galloway. And Dale would talk about drive-in worship constantly in his leadership lessons. So Julie and I already had a paradigm for it. And we weren't going to do it at a snack shack, which is what preach on top of a snack shack, which is what he did for drive-in worship. But we thought we can do it in the parking lot of our churches. And so We honored authority at the same time we pressed forward believing in God. You see, I believe in a crisis, people need God more than ever. People will always remember what you do during a crisis. They'll never forget it. Because during a crisis, you are living out your faith and the belief you have in God. Do you have a big God or do you have a small God? Now, whether or not Charles Kyker believes in a small God or not, God's still going to be big. You can rest assured. But do I believe he's big? Do I believe he's a God of great capacity? People need hope. They need encouragement during a crisis. We were not going to lay down. We were going to press forward. And we were going to try to believe in people. We had wonderful volunteers that came out. We had wonderful people that rose up, our staff, so many of our laity. And then we opened up legally when the governor allowed safe distance Pentecost Sunday, the end of May of 2020. We opened up and had multiple services at our campuses, still doing drive-in at the same time. I lift that up only as an example to say that there were times where I doubted myself. There are times when the negativity came in through social media. What are you doing having drive-in? And then when we did open up at the end of May, you're going to kill people. And I'm like, I've been out in the world for the last 2 months, ever since this COVID thing started in March. There are people at the grocery store. There are people at Walmart, at Target. There are people at the drugstore. Christ Church ain't going to kill them by themselves. The liquor store was essential. I went to see half my members at the liquor store. They were there. Drinking had increased by 57. I'm teasing somewhat on that last part, but I thought it was crazy. The liquor store is essential, but the church is non-essential. That's what we were deemed by the government. And I thought, never, not in 1,000 years, will the Church of Jesus Christ ever be non-essential. She represents the kingdom of God, the bride of Christ. We are most essential. And when you believe you're most essential, you'll act that way. We believe God is absolutely essential, our Creator and our Redeemer, Jesus Christ. We had to believe in others and believe in people, and wonderful people rose up to volunteer and serve. And then you have to believe in yourself that at the end of the day, what you're doing, after you've prayed, after you've sought advice, after you've sought counsel with your leaders, what you're doing is what God has called you to do, and you need to press forward out of faith. All too often, we surrender, we step back, because either we lack faith in God, we don't have enough resources because we haven't believed in people, and thirdly, we don't believe in ourselves. So I pray you and I won't just see giants. I'm not saying the giants don't exist. I'm not saying the problems aren't there. But we believe in a God who's bigger than the problems and the challenges that we face. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.